Did you know that we live in different countries around the world? Did you know that in all these other countries we speak different languages? Well, if you don't, then I don't know what you don't know. Yeah, it's a general fact that in different countries we speak different languages, and even though English is one of the most spoken countries in the world, it's obvious that it isn't the only language. And so when movies gets premiered around the world, there tend to be a dub in that specific country to go along with it. You know, to keep the country to stay true to its language roots. And one such country is Sweden. And ever since the introduction of film and audio equipment in general, there's always been a Swedish dub of Disney movies to all of them practically. But did you know that several of them has been redubbed? Well, I certainly didn't, but I was able to find a website which shown all of the Disney movies that was redubbed after a while. So in today's video, that is what I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you all of the Swedish dubbed Disney movies that was redubbed after a while after their initial release. And so naturally, I'm going to kick off with the very first video, with the very first movie, and that is naturally Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Actually, this movie was dubbed about a year after the initial release back in the US, as it was dubbed in 1938. However, it was mainly just shown in theaters, and in the 1980s this film was redubbed along with which means new voice actors, and this has considered lost media since the initial original dubbing from the 1930s has not been found at all. It was never released on VHS or DVD at any point. The next movie on this list is Pinocchio, as it was dubbed in 1941. And this dub was shown as with Snow White in theaters, and was even the initial dubbing when it was released on VHS in the 1980s. But it was redubbed in 1995, and that is the standard when you're going to buy this movie today. Now, Fantasia is a very special case, as much like with Pinocchio, it was released in theaters in 1940. However, this movie didn't actually have any actual voice acting, as it was more of a narrator. But here's the weird part about it. It's unknown who was actually the narrator in the Swedish dub initially, and supposedly this was because it was dubbed in the US. And then it was redubbed in 1986. Something that isn't known about Fantasia is that it was also a road show, meaning that it was shown on a stage also. It was shown on a regular theater screen, however with a live conductor on stage. And not just that, there was also a way the speakers were connected so that the audio was pulsing through them in the salon. It was actually a rather popular tourist attraction, but unfortunately it wasn't very profitable. And so in 2010 this film was released yet again with the roadshow audio. Now Dumbo is actually a rather interesting case, because it's the only Disney movie that has been dubbed several times, 3 times, which is the same as Fantasia. First off, it was dubbed in 1986 in the US with Swedish Americans that did the voices. However, it was only released in theaters and has never been released on VHS or DVD. Then it was redone in 1972, this time with Swedish voice actors, and that version has only been released on the rental via VHS, as well as the VHS from 1990. And then it was dubbed in 1997 yet again, and this is the version that you will get if you go looking for it on stores today. And yet again we had the very first dub of another movie, that being Bambi, and that was dubbed in 1943. But unfortunately, that is yet another film that had the first dub completely lost, as in 1985 it was released in theaters yet again, but with new audio, meaning that the original audio has not yet to be seen. And that is the standard version which you will find in stores today. And now here's a movie I have not really heard much about. Fun and Fancy Free. Actually, this is a movie I have never really heard about. However, it is the only Disney movie which has partly been redubbed, but not entirely. It was dubbed for the first time in 1950, and it was the one shown in theaters here in Sweden, and as well as a rental VHS edition in the 1980s. However, It was redubbed in 2003 when it was initially released on DVD. Unfortunately, the original dub of this, that is from 1950, has never been released at all. Okay, so now we're moving on to some Swedish Disney history, as Cinderella was the very first film, that being from 1950, the first one that ever got a Swedish redubbing. Like I said, it was initially dubbed in 1950, but only 17 years later, the film was redubbed, that being in 1967, and the initial dubbing of this has never been released on VHS or DVD, and the 1967 dub is the only one that has been released here in Sweden, making it the longest dub in Swedish Disney dubbing history. Now, Alice in Wonderland was initially dubbed in 1951, and that was the one that was released, that was used for about 41 years, even up until 1992. But a VHS re-release in 1997, meaning that the film was redubbed. And that is the version that you will find when you go looking for it online on the Swedish market. Okay, so Peter Pan is a strange case, as it's rather known that it exists, but it still doesn't really exist. The initial release was dubbed in 1953 and was shown in theaters up until the mid-80s, that being in 1996, but has never really been released on VHS or DVD. However, it was redubbed in 1992, and that is the version that you will be looking for. So here's something you might find interesting. Lady and the Tramp was dubbed for the first time in 1955. However, it was shown in theaters up until the 1980s, but never surfaced on VHS or DVD. However, that is the version that is used on the Donald Duck Christmas special, which is broadcasted every Christmas in Sweden. They was redubbed in 1989, and that is the version that you'll find on VHS and the DVD. Okay, so Sleeping Beauty was Swedish dubbed in 1959, and that is the only version that was shown in theaters at the time, but that version has never been released on VHS and DVD. It was redubbed in 1980, and that is the version that you will find while looking for it. And much like Sleeping Beauty, 101 Dalmatians was yet another movie that was released in theaters once, but wasn't released on VHS and DVD. The initial version was released in 1969. It was then redubbed in 1987 under a different title. However, it was in 1995 when it was released yet again in theaters, and that is the version that you will find if you're looking for it. Okay, so this one is a bit ambiguous if it actually was released in theaters as a feature film. It was initially as three longer short films featuring Winnie the Pooh and friends, called An Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. They were dubbed 1967, 1969, and 1977. The complete version of this was released in VA on television in 1995. That is the version that you will find when you're looking for this particular compilation here in Sweden. Okay, so then let's move on to the Black Cauldron, one of the most infamous Disney films that has throughout the years been gaining a cult following. The initial film was dubbed like in the US release in 1985. However, after only 4 years on the theatrical market, it was re-released in 1989 with new audio when it was released on VHS. Unfortunately, the original dubbed version from 1985 has not yet been released on VHS or DVD. And now we're at the very last movie on this list, Oliver & Company from 1989. It was initially released in 1989 with the Swedish dub. However, when the film was going to be re-released for a new audience in 1987 for VHS, it was supposedly a bit too expensive to hire the original voice actors, which means that the 1997 version is the one that you will find when you're looking for it in stores, and the 1989 version is pretty hard to find. That is the original dub. So yeah, that was this video. Write in the comment section what I can do better, because I know I'm not perfect. Alright, that was it for this video. I will see you guys later. Bye.